friends. Welcome back to the podcast where we're practicing the art of espousing one conversation and one small step at a time. I'm James.
And I'm Lisa. Over the last several weeks, we've had a lot of conversations with couples around emotional intimacy and emotional safety. Because if we're honest, most couples don't struggle because they don't love each other. They struggle because it doesn't always feel safe to share what's really going on inside. And when it doesn't feel safe, we start to protect ourselves by shutting down, getting critical, getting defensive, or just staying on the surface, or a whole laundry list of things.
That's right. So today we wanted to do something a little different. We pulled together some of our most helpful content around building emotional safety because we really believe, and we've seen it firsthand, that a successful marriage develops emotional intimacy and learns how to provide a safe place for emotions to be shared.
As you listen, we want you to be asking, what would it look like for our marriage to feel emotionally safer or safe again? And what's one practical step we can take this week to move in that direction?
But before we jump into the content, we want to take a second to tell you about The Collective, our private online community to help you and your spouse build a healthy marriage rhythm all year long. For about the price of a pizza a month, Lisa,
we could do this.
You could get something better than the extra carbs, right? You can get real nourishment for your marriage.
Every month, you'll have monthly live calls with us, practical resources, conversation guides for each podcast episode, date night ideas, who doesn't need those, and supportive community of couples who want to grow just like you do.
Yeah, we believe that couples grow best when they have a pro-marriage community to lean into, and The Collective is just that. So we want to encourage you to jump in today. You can get all the details at aos-collective.com or with the link in the show notes.
We'd love to see you there. All right, let's jump in today's conversation.
We believe and we have witnessed that a successful marriage develops emotional intimacy and knows how to provide a place of safety for our emotions to be shared. It's so important to create an environment where both partners feel safe to express themselves and be vulnerable with one another. This actually can be challenging to achieve, but it's possible with dedication and understanding. You know, I'm sure we could all think of environments or attitudes or language and or behavior that challenge developing this area. James, we talk about 5 areas of intimacy: recreational, physical, sexual, spiritual, and emotional.
Yep.
To me, spiritual and emotional intimacy are more of the internal, and the other 3 feel more external. My mind tends to struggle to know exactly how to concretely invest in the internal aspect of our intimacy.
Yeah, the external expressions of intimacy are definitely more tangible, but the emotional and spiritual aspects of intimacy are foundational for growth of intimacy. But yeah, I get, Lisa, that they're not seen by the eye.
Right.
But if emotional and spiritual intimacy are not developed, they will negatively impact the others. And there are actions, things that we can do to strengthen both our spiritual and emotional intimacy. Today, we're going to be focusing on increasing emotional intimacy by specifically looking at creating an environment where emotional intimacy can grow. So creating an environment is an intentional process.
Right.
So if you don't design the environment that you want, you'll get an environment by default, and it may not create the safety that your marriage relationship needs to thrive.
Right. It's so true.
So we have 7 ways that we want to share with you how to create an emotionally safe environment in your marriage that will foster emotional intimacy between you and your spouse. And what we're going to do is talk about 3 things that you need to avoid, and then 4 things that you need to practice.
I love it. It's so good. So let's get started. The first is to avoid criticism. I definitely think there's some personalities that are more prone to this than others, but for sure, negativity is a habit that can be fostered and developed. It is a mindset that needs to be evaluated and adapted. This is not the aspect of constructive criticism that is more an evaluation to get better. It's really like a critical spirit.
Right.
It's like the movie picture of the lens of your life and the lens of your spouse, of your marriages. It's all bad. Nothing's going well. So let's get practical. Here are 3 steps you can take to avoid criticizing your spouse or having a critical spirit. The first step is be aware of how your words and actions can be interpreted by your partner. Maybe ask yourself, what is it like to be on the other side
That's
of me?
a great question.
It is. And it actually sometimes just want to say I'm sorry. Be the tone setter. Communication is the key to relationships, so it's so important to speak kindly and with empathy. Practically, I have to be intentional in this area. My tone of voice and the tone I can set in creating an atmosphere in our home. The entire Duvall family has this ability. We can't just say our kids get this from you or me, James. They get it from us, is that we have an ability to make an atmosphere feel pressured and tense without even saying a word. So I've been on the other side of this so many times, and I don't like it.
Right.
Internally, I've complained, and sweetly the Holy Spirit said, Lisa, you do this too. And I literally have made a shift in trying to set a different tone, even in times when I'm frustrated. Another way we need to be aware besides the tone is, are we a listening ear or a talking mouth? Listen to learn, not to speak. Understanding your partner's feelings and perspectives, it requires us to be curious.
Right.
So ask good questions. 30 years later, James, you and I still don't know everything about each other.
Right.
There's still more to learn and grow. So don't assume that you know your spouse. Be curious.
Yeah, that's so good. You're right. We always have new things to learn about each other. When you're curious and attentive, you can discover how experiences from the past have played into tendencies that sometimes cause tension in your relationship. So we had this experience a couple of months ago. We were on a walk and you shared an experience that happened to you when you were a teenager that I had not actually heard before. It was a significant story that gave context to some of the times in our marriage journey. Because I gave a listening ear and was cognizant of my tone, you opened up and felt safe to share the experience with me. So it's important that we actually are a good listening ear to our spouse.
Yeah. And it wasn't even like I was trying to keep that story from you. It had literally slipped my mind until we were walking that it came. It was like, oh my gosh, this is actually a pretty significant story I wanted to share with you.
Right.
Yeah.
But you only shared it because you felt safe and that I was actually listening and being attentive.
That's right. Yep.
So the second step to avoiding criticism is to be a problem solver, not a problem identifier. This is a big one because some people just have the gift of pointing out issues. You may think you're helping, but really you're just creating a feeling that nothing is ever right or enough. And that does not create emotional safety in a relationship. What if instead of coming with complaints or critique, you come with solutions and help? What if instead of critiquing or complaining about the house being messy or the kids being out of control, you solve the problem by picking up the house or giving your spouse the support they need to care for and correct the kids? You know, sometimes people critique or point out issues based on their opinion. And your opinion is only one opinion in the marriage relationship. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just yours. So be open to hearing your spouse's opinion and open to compromise. Work together to find solutions that address both of your needs and your concerns. Then the third step to avoiding criticism and creating emotional safety is to be an empathizer. And this is difficult for me. I've had to actually learn this, but it's how can you show patience and understanding when your partner makes mistakes or is having difficulty expressing their feeling? I was just reading today and the author was defining empathy as entering another person's pain. In our relationship, Lisa, you definitely are more open and communicative of your feelings and you actually enter into other people's stories so much easier than I do. But I personally had to really learn how to slow down, focus on the feelings behind the words, because with you, sometimes there are a lot of words.
Yes.
And then I need to do my best to express that I understand how you could feel the way you feel. And I don't have to agree with you, right? I don't have to agree to the way you feel, but I do have a responsibility as your husband who wants you to feel safe to allow you to be able to express your feelings. And sometimes, your feelings are very raw and emotionally raw form. And you need to know that I am for you and with you in those times, right?
James, all of that's so true. I really believe you've grown as an empathizer over the years, but I have also had to grow in being concise with my emotions so that you'll stay on the journey and want to listen to me.
Right.
In our situation, as a person who doesn't show a lot of empathy and you actually use the feel wheel, we talk about this a lot, the feel wheel. You have to look at the feel wheel to actually determine what it is you're actually feeling. I think as people like myself who have a lot of language around emotions can express them, we have to have patience and understanding, empathy for our partner who may not know how to articulate those things. So it goes both ways. Showing empathy and sympathy towards your partner can help strengthen the connection and make them feel more secure. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything that your partner does, but it does mean that you can acknowledge and validate their feelings without judging or dismissing them. Or in your case, James, when you actually express something that I go, oh, well, look at you have emotions and feelings. That would not be creating.
That's true.
That would not create a safe place. To practice expressing understanding, try to actively listen to your partner without interrupting or offering a solution. Ask open-ended questions about their feelings and show interest in what they're saying. Offer words of encouragement and reassurance when necessary, and be understanding of their needs and boundaries. This will create an environment of trust and security, which is essential for a healthy relationship. Relationships can be difficult, so it's important to take time and effort to build a safe and supportive environment. Okay, let's recap. How to avoid criticism. Be aware of what it's like to be on the other side of you.
Right.
Be a problem solver and be an empathizer.
I love it.
We can create emotional safety by avoiding criticism, but we can do it also by avoiding contempt. This is really a powerful word. It is the feeling that a person or a thing is beneath consideration. It's also defined as a disregard for something that should be taken into account. No relationship can be emotionally safe if there's contempt.
Right.
Contempt involves treating someone with disrespect, belittling them, or disregarding their feelings. Often we think of this in the nastiest form. And James, you and I have actually seen this in the nastiest form. So we have sat with couples time to time where contempt was so evident in their relationship, in their language with one another, how they treat each other, even in front of us.
Right.
So it has been bred and it's been welcomed for so long that it has just eroded the relationship. Those relationships that I'm talking about needed professional support right away.
That's right. Contempt can be reciprocal too. Each person was giving back to their spouse what they thought only their spouse was giving to them, right?
Yeah.
They each thought contempt was directed only one way, but it was evident in a big way. It was being reciprocated in both directions.
That's right.
Contempt breeds contempt. And so we have to be intentional about avoiding it at all costs in our marriage. So in a marriage, contempt can quickly erode the love and respect that should be present in a relationship. It can also prevent effective communication, leading to further dissatisfaction and hurt. So the best way to avoid contempt in your marriage is to recognize it and address it head on. So be mindful how you're communicating with your spouse and take a step back if you feel yourself getting angry, resentful, or sometimes it shows as sarcasm. Right?
Yes, yeah.
We need to find ways to express our frustration and grievances in a respectful way, and also to be willing to listen to our spouse's perspective. Recognizing that you both have valid feelings and are striving for a shared goal will help ensure your communication is more productive. Lisa, you and I, we designate a time for processing stressful situations or attitudes or sometimes stressful interactions. Sometimes it cannot be addressed or it should not be addressed in the moment, right?
We have to be more mature with our language with our spouse. We oftentimes can use language with our spouse that we would not find acceptable to speak to other people.
That's right.
Nor would we want someone to talk to us that way.
Right.
And I have been convicted of that myself, of some of my tone. And so to be mindful, to care, and use language that actually builds and creates a safe environment. Creating an emotionally safe marriage involves setting boundaries for how you will communicate with each other and respecting those boundaries. This may be a great point of discussion after the podcast is, what are the non-negotiables for communication between the two of you? We look at ways each of us can contribute to tension that could lead to contempt and avoid it. You need to evaluate what are the hot spots and create your own guiding principles for stewarding love and not breeding contempt. For example, one of the things that we would never say to one another, it's a non-negotiable, is that you're behaving like your dad, or you're behaving like your mom, or you say you're acting just like Nancy.
Yeah, that's not really good.
No, because it's definitely not breeding love.
Right.
We're not all the way to contempt.
Not that our parents are bad. But
No.
Nobody wants to be,
referred to. Well, and usually it's always in context to their poor qualities.
Right.
It's not always like you're a great financial steward of money like your dad.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, the other thing we do is we will not put each other down.
Right.
We won't say things that are hurtful, intentionally hurtful, or put down so that we avoid any kind of contempt or resentment in a relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
Even when I'm talking to girlfriends, you can know and rest assured if it's a tension point between us, I'm going to keep you in the highest regard, even if I'm processing challenges with communication.
Right. And that all creates emotional safety.
That's right. By avoiding contempt and fostering positive communication, you can create an environment of emotional safety and mutual respect in your marriage.
That's right. And then we say this all the time, but it's just common sense. Don't let small offenses build up. If you can't get over something in 24 hours, then you need to have a conversation with your spouse about it so it doesn't build up and cause resentment or contempt. Okay, so far we've looked at 2 of the 3 things that you want to avoid to create emotional safety in your relationship. One is avoiding criticism, and the second is avoiding contempt. So the third thing that you need to avoid in your relationship to make sure that you have an emotionally safe environment is you need to avoid defensiveness. Being defensive means that you're ready to challenge or avoid criticism in order to avoid accountability or to protect yourself.
Everything about that does not say anything about a great growing relationship.
That's right. It's easy at times to go into this self-preservation mode where we're afraid of losing something or we're trying to hide something or trying to prove something. And practically it plays out when our partner starts to feel like they need to protect themselves or their point of view, and often results in arguments or bickering. Ultimately, defensiveness puts a strain in our relationship. And this is especially true in marriage. You can totally see how this would erode an environment of safety.
Right.
Quite the opposite is true, though. You may hear or think statements like, no sense trying to talk about this, or I need to suck it up and just press through, which actually creates an environment not of safety, but an environment of apathy and resignation. And neither of those are going to be healthy for your marriage.
That's right. To be an emotionally safe spouse, it's important to take a step back when this happens and take a more objective approach to the situation. Typically, these situations are more than one conversation. So just start by listening. Do not give context as to why, because this is just an acceptable way of being defensive. You know,
Right.
let me give you context to why I behaved that way. No, you're being defensive.
Right,
So I just
exactly.
need to listen. This is where the tool intent and impact can really come in. If you haven't heard us talk about this on another episode, it's using the word intent and impact. I did not intend to hurt you. I hate that you feel this way.
Right.
I can see why that would impact you the way it did. So I'm not defending, I'm listening, and then I'm using those words. Make note and process later and circle back around on the things that you wanted to give a little context to.
Right.
But in the moment, just listen. If there's a need to feel defensive, there may be a future conversation you need to have, but it isn't right now. So if either partner is feeling like you have a need to be defensive, there's great potential that there is a future conversation needed. Then there's a thread to pull, but it's just like, wait and have that conversation later.
That reminded me of a tool that I've used many times in leadership, the idea of BCD. People get into BCD mode, which is blame, complain, defend. And we can do that in our marriage too. When we do something wrong or we offend our spouse, we can blame it on a situation or complain about something that caused us to act that way, or just defend ourselves. And one of the tools that we throw out there is whenever you feel like you're getting in BCD mode,
right,
you need to stop it and just realize that there's something to learn, and I'm going to dive into my spouse's perspective and hear from them.
Right. I love it.
Awesome. So we can create emotional safety in our marriage by avoiding criticism, avoiding contempt, and avoiding defensiveness.
We want to take a moment and tell you about a great opportunity for your marriage. If you're listening to this and thinking, wow, we could really use a reset in our marriage, then we have something great for you.
We offer specialized and unique marriage intensives for couples. This is a 3-month coaching process with Lisa and I designed to help couples build the marriage they truly desire. It starts with 2 days in person where we help you gain clarity on where you are, where you want to go together, and then we build a purpose-driven roadmap to get you there.
And the transformation doesn't stop there. The in-person experience is followed with 3 months of coaching. In that time, we'll walk you through intentional sessions to help you implement what you've learned, navigate challenges, and build lasting habits that strengthen your marriage.
Whether your marriage is struggling, feeling stuck, or simply you just need a fresh vision, this is designed to bring clarity, connection, and renewal. If you're ready to stop living by default and start living by design, visit artespousing.com to learn more, or you can schedule a short call with Lisa and I to talk more about it.
Let's look at the 4 active practices that we can do to foster a place where we can emotionally connect and build a strong marriage. The first practice, and one of the most important ways to create emotional safety in your marriage, is to quickly ask for and give forgiveness. This requires owning your part in any conflict, situation, or conversations that have gone bad. Even if you're responsible for only 2% of the issue, you're still 100% responsible for that 2%.
James, I find myself in this situation most often that I'm only 2% responsible.
So we've all experienced a person like Lisa who just cannot admit when they are wrong. I know that's not really you.
No, it's not, but it was a fun.
Maybe that person's not in your marriage, but maybe they're at work. It may be an extended family member or a close friend. What we've learned is when you cannot admit that you're wrong, you tend to continue believing the narrative that is shaped by you and you alone. And no one can provide and you cannot see a different perspective. This can lead to you becoming so internally and externally annoyed, truly believing that everyone around you is wrong. Lisa, we've been blessed that God spared us from this being part of our marriage history or story, but we have been on the other side of people who in their relationship, they've had this scenario of not being able to forgive or ask for forgiveness. And it really is, there's little or no forward movement in their lives. But the Bible has a lot to say about forgiveness. In Ephesians 4, verse 32, it says, be kind and compassionate to one another. You need to forgive each other just as Christ forgave you. Again, in Colossians chapter 3, verse 13, it says, bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. Let me just say that a gateway to forgiveness is really a good apology. And it's not just saying, I'm sorry, right? It includes looking and verbally acknowledging and actively changing the area you contributed. So we have to really practice giving and receiving forgiveness.
Yeah. And sometimes not sometimes, all the time, I think an apology should actually extend, will you forgive me, James?
Right.
Or you to say, Lisa, will you forgive me?
Right.
And then to that, I would never say, it's okay.
Right.
I would say, I do forgive you, James.
Right.
So I think it's important to make that exchange. The first practice is be quick to ask for and or give forgiveness. The second is to validate the feelings of the person who has been hurt. So I always love looking at the dictionary at words to really get understanding.
It increases your Arkansas vocabulary, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. I want to give you that one. That was a good one. To demonstrate or support the truth or value of. So to validate is to support truth or value of. Validating feelings is not always validating truth or facts around the situation or incident. You are validating how someone feels. It's not about agreeing or disagreeing with the other person. It's about recognizing that the feelings are real and they're valid. Validation doesn't necessarily mean giving into the other person, but it does mean letting them know that their feelings are heard and understood. I remember one time, James, we were sitting at the dinner table and you were instructing/coaching our son when he was much younger. And I just felt bad for him in that moment. I knew he needed it, but I felt bad for him. And soon after you finished that, I didn't even hardly let you take a breath. And I was like, but Parker, we love you and you're doing so good. And the dinner ended. Later, it hit me. What I said undercut your leadership and the necessary, very necessary instruction in his life. So I came to you and I said, I'd like to ask you to forgive me. And I acknowledge how that must have felt.
Right.
I validated that you might have felt like my words or my actions may have disrespected you in front of our son or minimized your role as a father and instruction to him. And you actually did appreciate that. To take it a step further, I went back to Parker.
Yeah.
And I said, I didn't mean to do that to your dad. I apologize to him. But basically, when you validate feelings of another person, you're taking ownership and establishing emotional safety.
Right.
And that's what I did in that moment because I'm looking to have my own ownership and state how that must have made you feel.
Right. And there may be times that one person doesn't validate the other person. And if I were to flip that situation, if you didn't say, James, I can imagine how that made you feel, I could have said, I forgive you. I want you to know how that made me feel. And I could express my feelings, which I probably would have to get my feel wheel out to do that. But I could express my feelings of how that made me feel disrespected or undervalued in front of our son.
Or what if I never even came to you and you had to come to me and say after the dinner and you had to approach me and say, hey, that didn't feel great.
Right.
And either way.
But an emotionally safe environment would be the responsibility to validate. I can see how that made you feel, and I'm sorry for that. I own how that made you feel.
You know what? In this moment, it actually goes back to our last episode. Is in that moment, if you had to come to me, I would have had to avoid defensiveness and say, I am so sorry. I did not want you to feel that way. I can see how you would have. So,
accepting that your actions may have caused hurt or harm can really be difficult, and you don't want to be defensive, right?
Right.
but it's an important step in creating a safe environment in which to express yourself. And taking responsibility helps foster mutual respect and can open the door to finding a resolution or compromise, which is really important for there to be this emotional intimacy in the relationship.
That's right. So basically, verbally own it, admit if you're wrong, or admit to the impact if the intent was not there. Even if the intent was there, just admit it. Verbally own how it impacted your spouse. Imagine how it could have impacted them and state that. And then practically own how you'll walk it out.
Right.
I think this is key in forgiveness and invalidating feelings, is that you have to look to have a plan to be different the next time.
Right.
Yeah. So by taking time to validate each other's feelings, couples can create this safe, supportive environment in which they can freely express themselves and work together on resolving issues. And the truth of this, it will compound.
Right.
It will compound and it'll double down in creating this. And we've gotten stronger and stronger at it as we've practiced that.
Yeah. So again, the first practice is to ask for and give forgiveness. The second is to validate your partner's feelings. The third thing is you also want to practice being willing to compromise. And when you think of compromise, you may think that you're settling for something less than what is needed for there to be quality or excellence in your relationship. However, we need to shift how we think about compromise. Me asking you, Lisa, to compromise in a way that goes against our principles or foundations to our marriage is not what we're talking about when we talk about compromise, right?
Right. So there are some compromises I initiate, like riding gondolas or jumping in the ocean with whale sharks. These are things I actually stretch myself, but you're not asking me to do that. And if I really did fear that, you wouldn't ask me to compromise that.
Right.
It's not that kind of compromise.
No, but even beyond that, we're actually talking about settling a dispute by mutual concession.
Right.
Right. To create this emotional safety, we have to be able to come to agreement, even if we have to concede some of our own preferences.
Got it.
And maybe to accept standards that maybe we feel are lower than our desirable standards. So,
oh man, accept standards that are lower than my desirable standards. I know this is going. I know this is going.
So like Lisa, you have this standard of how the house needs to be clean.
Yes and amen.
Right. And you want it to be in order, but sometimes you lower your standards around that for compromise to make a way for other things.
That's right. You know, one of the things I lower my standard on?
What's that?
Is toothpaste in the sink. That's what I love.
I think that's a lower standard, but I don't think that's the reason you lower your standard.
No, but that's one of the things I lower. I just say, you know what? There's more important things than toothpaste in a sink. So
I always say that if you're going to put toothpaste in a sink, Lisa, you ought to clean it up after yourself.
That's right.
So for me, toothpaste in the sink and dirty dishes and so forth are not a big deal, but I compromise and put effort into picking up.
You do.
Again, it doesn't matter to me, but it matters to you. So I'm going to find the common ground there so that I can move closer to you.
Right.
So in any healthy marriage, both spouses need to be willing to compromise in order to come to any kind of agreement.
Right.
And by no means does compromising mean giving into or letting the other person win all the time. Nobody in the relationship is supposed to be a doormat to just be walked on. And, and really, it's not about winning or losing, right? It means finding a balance between two sides of a viewpoint. We both have different viewpoints, so we want to find a balance between those two things.
You know what? If it's about winning or losing, you're both losing.
That's right.
That's right.
That's true. So a few things to think about. You want to be open to considering your spouse's point of view and working towards an acceptable solution that both of you can agree on. It's important to remember that communication is key here. So make sure that you are both open and honest about your feelings and be respectful of each other's opinions. Being willing to negotiate and make compromises can help build trust. And then lastly, let me just mention with this the importance of utilizing active listening, listening to learn, listening to hear the heart, not just the words that are said. So it's okay if you and your spouse don't always agree on things. You're going to have different viewpoints, different opinions, different perspectives. The important thing is that you're both committed to working together to come up with solutions that benefit both of you. With patience and understanding, you can learn to compromise without sacrificing your needs or beliefs and actually move closer together in your emotional intimacy.
There are some more complicated areas in our married life where we have to bring compromise besides household things. So I don't want to reduce it to that. That just is a great...
You don't want to reduce it to toothpaste in the sink.
I don't want to do that, but that's just a very concrete way of doing it. But there are, in all honesty, some places where we have to come to compromise. We actually work together. And so some things in that environment, there's tension there to come to compromise. In parenting, there's tension to come to compromise. That's another big one for us.
Yeah. Another big one is with like like vacations and holidays, right?
Right. With our in-loves. I like to call them in-loves instead of in-laws.
Right.
Not to mention, not even just vacation and holidays of like, are we going to go to Memphis? Are we going to go to Ohio? Or are we going to stay here? And now we have the complexity of our kids who are outside of the house. What are we going to do? But there are probably some family of origin tensions that we have to manage that have nothing to do with holidays and vacations that we have to come to a compromise on how we're going to navigate. Again, with this compromise, I know we've given a really simple example. This can get very complex, but if we work it out in the smaller places, it will tend to build some reps for the larger places in life where compromise is a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, and I think practicing compromise is moving towards each other and towards each other's perspective and viewpoints.
I love it. I love it. The last practice is seeking out help when needed. James, is nearly 15 years ago when we sought out professional help in parenting with one of our kids. Back then, counseling had a stigma with it, and maybe it even does today, but not in the circles we're running around with. With our parents' generation, counseling wasn't even readily available. And when it started becoming available, it certainly was rare to hear someone say, I'm going to counseling, because that would indicate something is dreadfully wrong with you. But when we sought out counseling, it did feel like we were saying we had messed up, or we did something wrong, or we're really bad parents. We did learn some amazing things that we did not know in that season. So there's so many valuable lessons in parenting in our own personal life that we learned. But one of the most amazing things is I learned how brave it is. And it was the most loving thing that we could do as a parent to get counsel to know how to navigate hard seasons. I remember the first time that we shared this idea that we went to counseling as pastors.
Mm-hmm.
People are thinking we must have it together.
Right.
But we're seeking counsel.
I've been fooled.
Yep. And a crowd of people, so many people after that came up and said, thank you so much for lifting the stigma of getting help. And we still want to continue to do that. That's why we're bringing it up now, is if you need help, you need to get the help that you need. Often we try as a married couple, and we should try to handle things in our marriage on our own. But sometimes it's necessary to get outside help. If you've been trying to maintain emotional safety in your marriage and you still feel like there are issues, it may be time to seek some help from a professional, pastor, or a marriage coach. This kind of support can help you identify issues that are causing the tension in your relationship and help you both learn how to handle them better. An outside perspective is always great because you can see things a little more clearly. I just want to walk through some of the options because I just did this the other day, James. We walked through with a couple some of the options they had because they were in a stuck place. So there's counseling. Counseling, you're working with a therapist that can help you learn how to navigate deeper emotional issues such as depression or anxiety or maybe some past trauma in your life, family of origin issues, or maybe just a series of years that you and your spouse have gotten in a place of bad habits. Seeking counsel independently, individually, helps you develop skills and gain tools to care for one another better. There are times, James, in my life that I have needed independent counseling to work on myself, to work on Lisa, to be a better Lisa, better wife, and a better mom. So there's no shame in that because this is what I know. A better me is a better we.
I like that. A better me is a better we. I like that.
That's right. So counseling's an option. Coaching is the second option. So coaching is all about getting from where you are to where you want to be. The conversation around coaching is, where are you currently right now? What are the trouble spots, the tension place, the places you feel stuck? But it quickly moves to a plan, a strategy, or priorities to support the vision of your marriage. And that's really what the reboot process is. It is a time to hear some of the pain points, but we quickly move to strategies and plans to move forward in strength.
Yeah, we believe in both those tools and for different purposes.
Yeah.
And so if you need some additional help in your marriage, an active practice is to seek outside help when you need it. So to review, if you want to intentionally create an environment of emotional safety in your marriage, we want to challenge you, first of all, to avoid criticism, avoid contempt, and avoid defensiveness. And we want you to practice asking for and giving forgiveness, practice validating each other's feelings, practice compromising, and then when you need assistance, actively seek outside help.
Thanks for listening. If today stirred up anything for you as a couple, don't rush past it. Pick one thing and talk about it this week. Try this. Have a quick check-in and name one communication non-negotiable that will help your home feel safer emotionally. And when things get tense, come back to that intent and impact. Listen first, repair fast, and don't let resentment build.
Yeah, if you need outside help, that's not failure. It's actually wisdom. wisdom. Sometimes the most intentional thing you can do is reach out for support.
That's right. As we wrap up, we want to ask for your help to get this into more marriages. Would you take a moment right now and share it with a friend or another couple that you know that this could help?
That'd be incredibly awesome. And if you haven't yet subscribed and left a review, those simple steps genuinely help more couples find the show. And we love to connect with you outside the podcast as well. Come say hey on Instagram at @artespousing or DM us your thoughts, your questions, or what you're working on right now with your marriage.
You can also find more resources in the show notes and on our website at artespousing.com.
Yeah, one of the resources is our weekly email, the weekly practice. Every week we send a short email with a simple tool or practice that you can implement right away to strengthen your marriage. You can sign up for it with a link in the show notes.
We're cheering you on, and we look forward to being together with you again on our next episode. Until then, bye-bye.